Very, very good. Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well, and I hope it's not raining for you right now. What a wonderful July it's been so far. Obviously, for any Wimbledon fans, this is having a wonderful impact on your week so far. But we're not here to talk about tennis today. We're here to talk very much about WorkflowMax, about what's happening, as it says, what's next for the system. We'll give everybody, there's still people coming in, so we'll just give it a little minute or two before we crack on and start to have a bit of a chat through the occurrences that are taking place as we speak. I must say, it is a very interesting time for WorkflowMax right now. We've gone from many people feeling feelings of panic and terror through to people feeling quite blasé about what's going on right now. It's been certainly the emotional roller coaster for people. Obviously, a very important system for those of you who are using it. There are obviously, well, the majority of you who are joining today, I would imagine you are using the system right now. A lot of familiar names coming through there. A little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. Obviously, this is just in webinar formats. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop those just into either the chat or the Q&A, either way, whichever works for you. I'll try and keep an eye on that as we go through, and we'll see what we can do. There is a slot at the end for questions and answers. So by all means, if you're putting your information into the Q&A, we'll have a look through that towards the end. But if there's anything that I can address straight away as we go, I'll do my very best to do so. Well, quite a relaxed pace today. There's nothing too much in terms of time pressures. As I say, this is going to take about 40 minutes, something like that, to go through. So it's not going to be too much of your morning taken out with this, hopefully. But certainly it should be informative, and it should give you a good understanding of what to expect in the days, the weeks, the months ahead for us. Okie dokie. So WorkflowMax itself. Yeah, let's have a look at our agenda for today. So here we are. We're going to have a look at, as you might expect, what has happened so far. So yes, there's been quite a lot happening in the earlier part of this year. What is happening right now? We'll give you an update on where things are at this present point in time, what's going to happen in the next year. So we are literally just under a year away from WorkflowMax by Zero sunsetting. I love that phrase, sunsetting, being decommissioned, however you want to put it. And what can we expect from the company that is taking up the reins of WorkflowMax? So BlueRock have entered the picture, and their offering of WorkflowMax by BlueRock. What do we know about it? What can we tell you about it? And give you then an idea of the next steps that will present themselves to you as WorkflowMax users at the minute. As I said, we're going to round off with the Q&A after that, so we'll certainly see where we get to from there. So what has happened so far in terms of WorkflowMax? Well, on the 23rd of March this year, Zero announced that WorkflowMax, their product, which they've had for over 10 years now, is set to be retired on the 26th of June 2024. So as of right now, on the 6th of July, you have just under a year before your current platform will disappear forever. It will not be there. You will not be able to access it. It will simply stop. That, as you can imagine, that announcement caused all sorts of kerfuffle in the community. There was a lot of issues and questions about what this meant, what impact it would have, where people can go. Obviously, people have invested a lot of time and effort, and do I say blood, sweat, and tears, into the setup of their systems, often with help from the likes of myself and other consultant partners in the community. And obviously, you don't want that to go to waste. So it was then a case of looking at what was happening next. Well, at the same time that Zero announced that WorkflowMax was going to be retired, they also announced that they were selling the brand to another company in Australia called BlueRock. BlueRock is a fantastic company. They are an implementer of WorkflowMax, rather like myself. So they've implemented the system to their clients for about 8 years. But fundamentally, they are a software development house. So they have decided to buy the product of WorkflowMax and re-engineer it for essentially a new generation. And that is exactly what they're in the process of doing. So BlueRock itself began development of this product, or their product, back in February when they were given the green light. And they, when the announcement went live about the retirement of Xero's version of the product, they opened up their ideas forum to the public, along with a number of other communications that they passed out about who they are, what their intentions are. And that ideas forum has, get this, almost 1,000 ideas on it right now. So basically the public has clamored for improvements, with suggestions, with their thoughts, their take on what the system needs to be able to do, what they would like to see it do. So you can imagine that BlueRock have a fairly full plate at the minute, not only developing the system based on the tenets that they put forward, which we'll have a look on very shortly, but also in terms of then incorporating as many of the useful ideas that were put across from the Ideas Forum. So BlueRock is also hosting a series of WorkflowMax webinar presentations. So information that, rather like this, you can log on to, you can register for, you can either get the recordings as you can with this, or you can attend in person and ask questions. And it's really just going to be an ongoing series that's keeping you in the loop and keeping you up to date. It might seem like we're reiterating that here. We're putting our own take on this. Obviously, BlueRock is very hyper-focused on their product, as one would expect. What I'm aiming to do is give you just a slightly broader picture, just take a step back a little and think from your position as customers, as users of WorkflowMax by Xero, what does this all mean to you? So hopefully we can give you what you need to make good choices in the months ahead. So what is happening right now? Well, as we can see there, it is business as usual for WorkflowMax by Xero for now. This is absolutely true. There will be absolutely no development going into the product over the next 11 months. As you can imagine, Xero is essentially washing its hands of it. They're saying, nope, that's it. It is what it is right now. There's one or two tiny pieces of ongoing development that they were busy with that they're finishing off, but really that is it for the product. Considering that WorkflowMax by Xero is, as I said, just over 10 years old now, about 11 if at best reckoning, they've had an awful lot of opportunity to develop the product and haven't really done a lot with it, which is a great shame, really. They certainly invested some at the start. They freshened the product up. They gave it a nice new look. They made it fit for purpose. And then after that initial spurt of activity, you've had very small bursts of development here and there within the system. The last major leap forward was the introduction of folders into items such as quotations, jobs and invoicing, etc., to expand that capability so that it was actually a usable feature. That was, what, 2.5 years ago now. So again, it gives you an idea of the sort of the scale or the lack thereof of change that was taking place with Xero at the helm. Again, it doesn't mean it was a bad product necessarily. We know it has its flaws. We've all worked with it. We've seen the parts that it is great at. We've seen the parts that it's not so great at. But all it means right now is that we've got the product that we know for the next 11 months, and it will stay exactly as it is there forward. WorkflowMax by BlueRock, as I said, it is under development and has been since February. It was only the brand name that Xero sold to BlueRock. So as it is, WorkflowMax, the name, was sold to BlueRock, but not the base code, not the platform itself. So literally this is having to be built from scratch in the image that BlueRock would like to see, and hopefully that the rest of the community would like to see as well. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, my first thought was, my goodness, this is giving them a huge mountain of work to undertake. It is a massive opportunity. If you think about WorkflowMax by Xero, the original platform, this was built about 15 years ago by an independent company that then sold the product to Xero. It was built on the technology at the time. to the best of their ability, but nowadays it is essentially old. In terms of software, it is quite old. And it comes with a whole heap of issues that more modern platforms and more modern integrations make it rather difficult to do anything useful within the existing platform. So then WorkflowMax by BlueRock can now take advantage of modern tools, modern code base, and an ability to absolutely give you a tip-top, up-to-date modern experience. So this is the benefit that we are going to see once this product comes to market. In terms of the time scale, BlueRock is very, very confident that they have plenty of time to undertake this work. So their record to date for getting a product from zero to market is 6 months. They gave themselves a year, essentially, for WorkflowMax. So they believe that they've padded that out quite well in terms of giving themselves enough time to build this to where it is ready for release. The rest of the marketplace, as you can imagine, is a little skeptical about this, but at the same time, it's almost in their vested interests for BlueRock to miss the mark. You know, if this means that there's an opportunity for other providers to get your business, then absolutely this is a golden opportunity for them to be able to put themselves forward as a really viable alternative to WorkflowMax. And there are plenty out there. There are lots of different providers who give their own take on project management, of workflow management, of whether it be forecasting or things that, again, we would have loved to have seen in WorkflowMax that never really happened. This is very much where we'll start talking about next steps in the later part of this session, because it really leaves you with quite a big choice in front of you, is whether or not you continue forward with WorkflowMax as a brand name and a product that you are familiar with, or whether you take the opportunity to move on to something that is hopefully better, hopefully brighter, and gives you scope to grow in the future. Again, BlueRock will keep you up to date in terms of its ongoing series of webinars. As we said, this and the Ideas Forum will continue to roll forward. They're open right now. I do urge people, if you've got thoughts about what you want to see in WorkflowMax, do add your ideas to the forum. They're being triaged at the minute and put into groupings and priorities. And if you actually get a look at the website, you can see that there are ideas that are under serious consideration in terms of adding those features in to the new WorkflowMax platform. And as you can see there, BlueRock is building a migration tool as well. So this is obviously the pain point, is in terms of moving from any system to a new system, is always that horrendous process of migration. It's never easy. There's usually a lot to consider and a lot to prepare for to make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible. The good news is that BlueRock's migration tool is going to be, well, I can't call it a one-click migration tool. It's going to be very close to that. It's going to essentially be an option that you can click on in your toolbar to allow you to migrate over to WorkflowMax by BlueRock. It will give you then a series of choices in terms of what you wish to bring over into the system. So whether it be, obviously, yes, you're going to have your clients, your suppliers, your jobs, etc. But in terms of jobs, in terms of quotes and invoices, do you only want to bring your current information across, or do you want to bring your historical information across as well? So there's going to be a lot of simple choices, but quite impactful choices as you work your way through that migration tool. We do have a little bit of a product update in this session regarding WorkflowMax by BlueRock, so we'll get to that in due course and give you a little taster of what this is potentially going to look like. If you haven't seen it on one of BlueRock's webinars already, hopefully it will give you a little bit of insight, and you can start to form your opinions about where this is going. So what's happening in the course of the next year? Well, as it says there, the BlueRock's Idea Forum is going to close in August. So it will still be open, so you'll still be able to add your ideas. But in terms of consideration for anything for the initial release, it will essentially close in August. So you will still be able to add your ideas, but if you want them to be considered in terms of something that you could see in the initial release of the product, you need to get your ideas in before August, really. So this month, that's it. Get your ideas in. It still gives us a good 3 and a bit weeks to be able to put those ideas forward. Plenty of time to have a good think over a cuppa and decide which bits you currently hate the most in WorkflowMax and you would like to see improved, or things that perhaps aren't in there at all and you would like to see added in. Again, certain pain points that do exist in that system that haven't been serviced to date. As you can see there as well, BlueRock's beta version of their product will be released essentially in December. There's a little bit of obviously flexibility around that. It will depend upon their schedule, but the aim is to have the beta released in December and for there to be at least a couple of months for you to test the product before it essentially then goes live in February of 2024. Again, you can see there we've got that the cutoff date for your current platform, 26th of June. So you do have about 5 months, maybe a little longer if you take on the beta, to then decide whether you are migrating over to the new platform from BlueRock. So it's, again, this is where you're really starting to get into the final, few weeks of the product. You'll have to decide at some point within there whether you are moving over to a different system or whether you are staying with WorkflowMax and moving forward with BlueRock. But right now there is still plenty of time. So while I want to impress upon people that the necessity of this decision, it's not to the point where it's dire urgency right now. You have time at the minute, but don't let that time slip away from you. You will find, if the start of this year is anything to go by, that the next 6 months are going to disappear in a flash. And before you know it, it'll be Christmas. And before you know it, we'll have only, as I said, a scant few weeks left before WorkflowMax by Zero is then turned off. So, as I said, in terms of WorkflowMax from BlueRock, what can we expect? Well, there are a number of things that they're promoting about their version of the product. They're committing to you that it will have the same, at least, functionality as you enjoy in the current platform. Enjoy is an interesting word. Maybe you don't enjoy it, but it will be the same as the functions that you have in the current platform. They are committing to an identical pricing structure for all of 2024. So again, you will have no surprises for that first year of what you're paying for your product. The likelihood is that that will not move too far away from what you currently pay over the longer term as well. Again, BlueRock's commitment is to make the most functional product for the lowest possible price. And that is essentially the ethos. Can I say the word ethos? Ethos that they are following. There we go. That is very encouraging. At the same time, it doesn't mean that there won't be other elements of the program that you may pay for. So rather like at the moment, we have the additional element of leads, which is a separate fee in its own right. There will potentially be other modular features within WorkflowMax that you can subscribe to in addition to your base platform. So that in itself actually makes a lot of financial sense for most businesses. It means that you're not having to pay for functions that you don't want, but it also means that those functions are there if you need to tap into them. So again, that's the overall architecture of their pricing structure as we move forward. Again, the easy migration through the platform. This is one of their big commitments as well. They want this to be as little inconvenience to you as possible. Again, we'll talk in a moment about what elements will be retained and what potential elements will need to be recreated within the new platform. And you can see there as a sweetener, they've also said that if you sign up before April of 2024, you will get 50% off for the first 3 months on the new platform. So again, if your choice is that you're going to stay, you might as well get in there early and get your discount because everybody likes to get a little discount now and then. So do bear that in mind. Don't let that deadline pass you by. If you are migrating, it'll be really good to take advantage of that. So what enhancements can we expect within the product? Well, we're going to see in a moment examples of what the new interface is going to look like. Again, WorkflowMax by BlueRock promises a fresher look. It's going to look now like it's from the 2020s and not the 1920s, but certainly something that was out of the 1990s, let's say. It was not the most up-to-date visual, you might say. There are plenty of softwares out there that are prettier, that look cleaner, tidier, etc. Hopefully, the refresh that we're going to see in WorkflowMax by BlueRock will please you. So we'll see. We'll then have an improved reporting capability. For those of you who have spoken to me over the years about reporting, you know that there are limitations within the reports in WorkflowMax. Yes, it is massively flexible when we're talking about the report builder, but even then there are limitations in terms of what we can achieve. So certain things like potentially adding in your new calculations of your own design, or bringing in information from different tables of data within the system that at the moment just don't mesh. So ideally, we're going to see a cleaner, easier, much improved reporting structure in the new platform. They're going to extend the ecosystem. As I said there, more integrations. So what we will find is that it will then seamlessly integrate with more apps, such as CRM systems, such as scheduling tools, such as potentially the likes of inventory tools as well. All sorts of things that just make sense. And again, it will have a broader API than we have at the minute. So again, more data points that can be accessed and connected to than are available in the existing system. So that again allows for greater connectivity. And they're also aiming to make sure that this will be available through Zapier. So for those of you who don't know Zapier, it is a commercial platform that enables integrations between different systems, but doing it in a very user-friendly manner. So you don't necessarily have to be a developer to connect two systems together. Zapier makes these processes very, very straightforward. Yes, the new system is going to be multi-currency. So we can all get a little bit excited if we're doing overseas business. Again, you'll know that WorkflowMax right now, and I get to use it one more time, is currency agnostic. It does not understand pounds, shillings, and pence. All it sees is a digit. It sees a number. It says, guess what? You're charging 10 for this. Once this translates into zero, it is seen as the base currency in zero. So this has always produced interesting workarounds, says he, being very politic about his wording, in terms of how we then deal with multi-currency operations. So how do we produce jobs that are in dollars or as opposed to pounds, etc.? How do we report upon that? How do we make sure that all the costings give us the correct figures, etc.? So again, true multi-currency is going to be a boon. It's going to be something that has been long asked for, and we're very much looking forward to seeing that in the new system. There will be greater use of custom fields within WorkflowMax as well. Once again, the team at BlueRock very much believe in custom fields. They love the idea. They absolutely see the benefit and the flexibility that they provide, and they want to roll that out in a greater capacity within the system. And as you'll see in the screenshots ahead, we'll give you a little idea of the sort of thing that they mean with regard to that. After that, it all depends on how rapidly they progress in terms of their development schedule. So right now, the team at BlueRock are saying that they are ahead of schedule in terms of their development. And this is reflecting positively in terms of the number of additional features that they are going to be able to put into the system at the point of release. Obviously, this is going to be discussed very much over the months ahead. So more details will come out as the weeks progress. But again, I will be keeping everybody up to date, generally on a quarterly basis, to make sure that you know where you're at and what to expect. So without further ado, let's have a little preview of the product. And there we go. So if you think about your current quotes page, and when you're looking at your list of quotes, this is the difference to what we will see in WorkflowMax by BlueRock. So you can see that you've got, again, all your quotes, draft quotes, issued, revised, accepted, declined, and expired, all now appearing as nice, neat tabs. So not a need to go into a drop down and select all quotes when it's a lie, or archived quotes to see your older quotes that you've finished with. You'll be able to have those tabs easily accessible across the top. You'll have your search feature. You'll have a filter view. So you'll be able to literally filter this to show you information based on whatever criteria are available under your filters at that point. And you can see here in terms of the layout, it is a lot cleaner. The idea is that it's giving you not only the basic information about the quote itself, so exactly what we would expect to see, but there will also be possibilities to bring in other information into certain screens. So their idea is that they're going to add a cog icon to the right-hand corner of this toolbar. And for example, you will be able to bring in custom fields into your screen that you're seeing right now. Again, I've asked for simple things like the ability to add columns in. That is one of those things that they're very much looking at. You can see that you can order your columns up and down in terms of individual, whether it be by name or by client or by status, etc. You'll be able to filter on bases like that as well. So again, just a very, very clean view. From within the quotation itself, again, you'll see that you've got your similar familiar tabs at the top: information, phases, notes, documents, and history. Phases, we know them today as folders. Again, the naming convention on that will be flexible. So you will be able to name phases whatever you want them to be. If you want to call them job stages or deliverables, it's entirely up to you. But again, it's called phases to begin with by default. The history section, that audit trail within quotations, will be enhanced. So again, there will be more history that you can see there. Who has made what changes, for example, is the sort of thing that we're looking at. Ideally, we're looking forward to having a greater audit trail throughout the product. So if possible, we would love to see that history expand into areas such as job records, potentially even client records. Again, these areas are still up for debate at the minute, but certainly you can imagine the benefits of what this will mean in terms of your quotes. In terms of your quote information, those of you with an eagle eye will see that there is an extra section in there that says salesperson. So this, again, just an idea that has been requested numerous times over the years, is an idea that you can associate a particular person with a quotation. How many of you have wanted to actually have your quotes signed by a particular person or naming a particular person? You know, it could be the project manager or the project lead, etc. Again, exactly that idea. Yes, they've called it salesperson. It is an ability to associate somebody directly with the quote. And what do the individual sections within your quote look like? Well, there we are again. So you think about your existing quote right now. You've got your tasks section, you've got your costs section, and you can see here, it's then giving you this breakdown in terms of not only what phases we want to include them into, but also the information about that item. You can see on the front page now, rather than having to drill into an individual task or cost, is it billable? So again, visible there. Yes, we have the tick box on the left-hand side, but from a control point of view, this is now giving everything on the front. Likewise, is this an optional item? Now, if you think about options in an existing quote in WorkflowMax by Xero, options at the bottom of the whole quotation itself, a separate table, not able to be included in folders. They sit separately and they only refer to cost items. So already we can see the extra benefit that we've got here, that we can now make tasks optional as well, and we can include options within our phases as well. So definite improvements over and above what we've got. Here's another example of the cog icon that I mentioned earlier. So not only on the front page, looking at your quotations, but also within the individual line items. If we want to bring custom fields in with regards to tasks or costs, then we will be able to as well. So if you want, again, additional information about responsible people or about weights and measures or whatever it might be, you can have that in here. Again, it could be something as simple as adding in your code for the, sorry about that, your code for the cost item, which again is something that is quite common. So I hope that's given you a little bit of an idea in terms of what to expect from the sort of screen layouts and some of the simple benefits that we can expect from the actual, the new version of the product when it is released. So again, we'll see what the rest of that looks like in due course. So obviously then thoughts start to turn to migration. What is it that we're going to need to do? What can you bring with you? You can see here that you can certainly bring your clients, your suppliers, your job records, your custom fields, You can bring your custom document templates across with you. So if you've spent hours of painstaking work building your custom documents, they will most certainly be able to come across with us. How long will the migration take? A matter of minutes is the simple answer. So again, it does depend on the volume of data. You can imagine if you've got tens of thousands of transactions and items in there, if you're bringing all of your history across, it might take a little longer. But this is not a matter of days or weeks. This is a matter of something that you can click through and it will begin to progress for you immediately. So hopefully that's going to give you an idea of how that will operate. We'll also be able to make sure that, again, your job structures come across. So things like job templating, etc. That is absolutely going to be part and parcel of what comes across into the new version of WorkflowMax. So no painstaking rebuilds of all of your existing job templates. And I know some of you have really complex job templates. So that I'm hoping comes as a relief. As it says again, there will be more details revealed this month with regard to this. So there will be another customer webinar from BlueRock very, very shortly. And they're going to go into greater detail in terms of what their migration tool will allow you to progress across into the new platform. So again, I urge you to keep an eye out on their website, register for their webinar, and we'll see what they have to say once they've told us what they've got ready for us. So then we're looking at next steps. In terms of where you are right now, you do have a decision to make. You need to decide whether or not BlueRock is the right platform for you. So if their version of WorkflowMax fits the bill, if from everything that you're going to hear over the next few months convinces you that it is absolutely the right move, and for some of you, it may just be the path of least resistance. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. When we are in business, you know, the less speed bumps that we've got to our smooth operation, the better. But it's a decision that needs to be taken. If it is a case that you are thinking of moving away from WorkflowMax entirely for the various reasons that you may have over the years, let alone the fact that it's ending, then I would urge you to think about this in a timely manner. So now is a good time to begin those conversations if you haven't done so already, and to start to think about what you're looking for from a replacement product. What functions does it need? What is it that you've missed that hasn't hit the mark with WorkflowMax by Xero? What do you want in terms of an ability to grow your business or to monitor your business as you move forward? So all of these considerations really do need to be worked through so that you can then choose a suitable product for you to move forward with. Again, as it says there, engage with a consultant. No matter what your decision, if you're deciding to stay with WorkflowMax by BlueRock, or you're deciding that you want to move away to a new platform, it's always helpful to have an expert in your pocket, to be able to bounce ideas off them, ask questions of them, get them to make suggestions for you. So because the market is very busy in terms of project management tools, it can be very helpful for somebody to be able to suggest 2 or 3 options at the most to you and cut the wheat from the chaff, so that based on your specific requirements, you can then target your own research to a much smaller number of products rather than having to wade through the entire marketplace and then decide after months of research that most of them are identical and only 2 or 3 of them are different enough to give you what you're looking for. So certainly have a think about getting those sorts of processes in place if they are needed. In either situation, you'll also need to look at starting to prepare your data. Now, obviously, if you're moving to a new system, yes, you can imagine preparing your data is what you would expect. It's going to have a different architecture. We're going to need to make sure that we can provide information to that new system in a way that it can understand it. In terms of WorkflowMax, you might say, well, what data do I need to prepare? It's just going to be a straightforward transition. Well, this is true, but at the same time, do you want to bring through all of the mistakes, all of the test examples, all of the rubbish that builds up naturally over years of using a product like this? This is an ideal opportunity for you to do some housekeeping in your existing system, to be able to sweep away the bits that you no longer need, and from there to be able to then be clean and tidy in readiness for your move to the new version of WorkflowMax. I would also suggest that, again, if you are moving over to WorkflowMax, that you do review your reports in terms of what can and can't come across. Then very much reports are, because it's going to have a new architecture, these are the elements that will have to be manually created at this stage. We know this from the details that BlueRock have given us so far. I do not anticipate that that will change in the interim. So at this point, we very much need to understand exactly which of these reports you use on a regular basis. Again, I've seen some clients who have no custom reports, and that'll be very simple. I have other clients who have dozens of custom reports and use a lot of them as well. So again, this could be a simple, scan over the list, or it could be a real deep dive into understanding which of these reports are the ones that are vital to you, which ones are just nice to have, and then getting these cataloged so that we can then recreate them in the new platform once it's ready. So certainly in terms of that, that's hopefully giving you a little bit of a call to arms in terms of where to move to from here in terms of your process and your preparations for the end of life of WorkflowMax by Xero. Got one more, actually, perfect time to move across to the Q&A. I've got another question in here at the minute. So where does BlueRock store personal data for GDPR? So this will be stored in the UK for UK residents, etc., etc. Their aim is to have their data stored in local territories to make sure that all such considerations and laws are abided by. So have no fear in terms of that. This essentially will mean that your data has no different considerations to what it does right now, being stored by Xero on their servers in the UK. I'll open this up to the floor at this stage. So we've got a few minutes left right now. So as I said, we were aiming to be finished round about 9:15, not 9:45. If anybody else has any questions that they would like to pose at this stage, please do so. Please pop them into the Q&A and we can have a bit of a chat about that, and we can see what is on your minds, what's concerning you right now. Alternatively, by all means, reach out to me individually after this session, and we can certainly pick your queries up and we can provide answers where possible to these. Will WorkflowMax integrate with Xero? It most certainly will. The good news is, and rather surprisingly, it may actually have a better integration with Xero than Xero's own version of WorkflowMax, which seems quite bizarre. But because the new architecture will allow us to have essentially more data points that we can connect to, this potentially might turn into a fully fledged two-way integration with Xero. So it may be that we see data flowing in both directions. For example, you may be able to update a contact in Xero and that information flows through to your contact in WorkflowMax. So simple things, but really, really useful things like that. Do current users require a partner to help with the migration? It is, in essence, going to be capable of self-service. So it is not mandatory that you have a partner to help you with this. What I would very much advocate is that guidance is always helpful. So to give you that reassurance that, all of your data is ready, that your team is ready, that your reports are reconstructed, that essentially everything is there for you and that your hand is being held through the process. And obviously, because, this is what we do for a living, then absolutely, I would say that it is beneficial to work with a consultant. Any of you who've worked with building systems yourselves without assistance, you know what a project that can be. For those of you who've gone through that process with a partner, with the likes of myself, etc., hopefully you felt the benefit of that. And again, I would say that it would be a similar feeling when it comes to moving across to WorkflowMax by BlueRock, or indeed to any other system if you decide to move away from it, is that help is always a benefit. The leads page, will it be the same as the quote page? Good question. I would suggest it will be very similar in terms of the revamp that it's had or that it's going to have. All of the underlying code is essentially in place at the minute. They are working on the visuals now, the actual page structures. And if you consider it, there are hundreds of pages individually within this product. So it is still quite the large project to get this done. But what I've shown you hopefully there today gives you an idea of the cleanliness and the tidiness that we can expect from these new pages. So yes, watch this space. And as they build these new screens, they will reveal them to us and we'll get a much better feel for how these will look for you and feel for you. Integration with multiple zeros. I have mentioned this with them. And again, this is under consideration. It is highly likely that it will be possible. Again, it's not built yet, so we don't know for a fact, but there are already products in the marketplace that can integrate with multiple zeros. We see no reason why WorkflowMax by BlueRock couldn't go down a similar route and have that same capability. So certainly, again, I have a number of clients who have multiple zeros. And at the minute, you either have to have WorkflowMax as a standalone and simply recreate manually information like invoices in their individual zeros, or alternatively, you have to have a single entity of WorkflowMax for each individual zero. And you can imagine the kind of duplication that leads to. It's not pretty. So there are, sometimes it's what we're looking for, sometimes it's not. Again, sometimes we want that separation in our work management, but not always. So if we've got that flexibility, you can imagine the benefit that will provide. There we go. And in terms of, are there any early plans to integrate some of the app features, e.g. resource planning, new versions, or will WorkflowMax remain largely backward looking? Again, this certainly is still up for debate. We know for a fact that there will be more integrations available. So while WorkflowMax at its release will not necessarily include, let's say, forecasting as a particular element within it, it will certainly have an ability to integrate with tools that can provide that. Moving forward, as I said, well, I won't say the sky's the limit. Obviously, there are limitations to development schedules, but as a highly requested area of development, you can imagine that one of the modules that could well be produced in the medium to longer term could well be forecasting. So I, again, urge anybody who has requests like this, please add them to the forum. I know a lot of you have already, but please get in there and get your requests in, because the more weight that's put behind these, the more consideration that they will be given. It's absolutely true. Would we need to pay anything extra to BlueRock for the migration? The migration is free. So there is, unless you're engaging with a consultant and paying a consultancy fee, if you're self-servicing the migration, it won't cost you a penny. So you can imagine that literally on day one of your new system, you haven't paid to get there. You're paying exactly the same as you did in your previous one, unless, of course, you've migrated before April next year, in which case you're getting 50% off for your first 3 months. Will the start and due dates of jobs have the year visible? Yeah, they're funny that, isn't it? Let me say yes, I would imagine they will. Again, this is something that is, yeah, why it was not included in the first place is anathema to me. I have no idea. You would imagine that it should have been included. It's a fairly obvious thing. Yeah, put it in as a feature request. I'll certainly mention it to Ryan and the team the next time I speak to BlueRock. But yeah, let's say that seems like a fairly obvious one, doesn't it? Will there be a way to track project progress by percentage completed? Again, it is, I know this is a feature that's been requested because I'm not the only one who's requested this. It is very common in a lot of industries that we track by percentage. So whether it be for individual phases, let's get used to using that terminology, or whether it be for the project as a whole, absolutely true. At the minute, WorkflowMax by Zero tracks your percentage of time spent based on the hours that you've added as an estimate, but it doesn't necessarily work based on, let's say, a budget. So we'll have to see what can be produced in terms of new features. And as I said, the commitment of BlueRock is for at least the same functionality as we're experiencing right now, plus whatever additional development can be shoehorned into the time frame that they've got. Who would WorkflowMax by BlueRock beta be available to? Well, initially it will be available to partners like myself. So that is, again, for obvious reasons, we need to be able to support you guys in terms of your queries. So we will have an early access to that beta, but it won't be for very long, only a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, I would imagine. And then that beta will be made available to the general public. So you will have plenty of time to sign up to that at the end of 2023, with a view to it going live, as I said, in February of 2024. So don't worry about it. You will most certainly get your access to your beta, and anybody who wants it will be able to sign up for it and take advantage of it. Well, we've just hit the 45-minute mark, folks. So I will, unless we've got any other questions, I don't see anything more coming through there just at the minute. I will bid you a fond farewell. Thank you so much for joining the session today. The intention would be that we'll have another of these in about 3 months. We're aiming for probably the early part of September for our next update. We will still be passing out information via LinkedIn. So we will put this recording on LinkedIn, as well as sending you a link directly. And obviously, thank you very much for your attendance today. Again, as we move forward, we'll try and keep you as up to date as possible in between these regular updates. But certainly don't feel afraid to reach out to us whenever you have questions of your own. Well, thank you very much as well. You're more than welcome. And I wish you a pleasant day, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Thank you for now. Take care, folks. Bye for now.